this is a little Gemini Tinytag logger. It's quite a neat little logger. It's quite slimline. The manufacturer's spec is -40 to +70 degrees C. Now we've actually customised the battery, so the logger is now capable of +75 degrees C and a little bit above, as we've checked during tests. Now there are a number of different ways of talking to this logger. You can either use the cable with this jack plug, but the trouble is you have to use a screwdriver to take the outside cap off. Now as you can see from the side here, this does cause a bit of damage, and the integrity seal of the logger will eventually be corrupted. So, and also if it takes a bit longer, so if you're doing a lot of loggers, the best thing to do is use this little USB pad that we have here. Now we're going to assume that all the relevant drivers and software from Gemini have been installed. Gemini quite good, everything comes with a manual, all the software and all the pads and all the connection devices come with drivers, and this is the main Tinytag software here that you need a code to authorise. So what we'll do first is make sure that this USB connector is actually working on the computer, and the way to do this is go to My Computer, Properties, and we're going to Hardware, Device Manager, and then what we'll do is we'll look to see that this device is here. It talks in RS-232 language, but it is a USB device, so we've got a USB serial converter. And then what we'll do is we'll check which COM port it's on. So according to the computer, we're on COM port 7. So we'll open up the main software now. And we go to Options, Communications Options, and we make sure that COM 7 is ticked. Not only COM 7. If anything else is ticked, or if there's some confusion in the software and 2 COM ports are ticked, then it won't talk to anything. So it's only COM 7. So the main buttons that you really need to know about at the moment are the Start button, which configures the logger and launches it, the Stop button, which evidently stops the logger, this button downloads data from the logger, and this button will check the current readings at ambient or wherever you are, just to check that everything's working. So we'll check that everything's working. So according to this, serial number 588408 on COM 7 is reading about 25 degrees. Then you can take that off and we can check that the serial numbers are correct, and it is. And we put it back on the pad, and once it refreshes it starts reading again. So we'll close that, and what we'll do is we'll launch and set up the logger properly. So this is your main options for setting up the logger and getting it started. So you can enter any kind of description label you'd like for your logger. So for this instance we've called it Transit 2 Test for the test we did on it in our environmental cabinet, but you can call it Oven 1 or anything that's appropriate for the areas in which it's going to be used. Currently the logger is starting immediately, nothing is ticked and no times have been put in. If you know that you're going to be using it in a couple of hours and you want it to delay until then, you can put in a time span here, or you can say an absolute start time, so you can say I'd like you to start at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait until the trigger event. Now this is any kind of event involving a magnet. So what we do is on the back of the logger here you see that there are 6 dots just above the barcode, and what will happen with the trigger event is if you have a mild magnet such as this one, which is an example from Testo, what you can do is you can run the magnet down the back from the top to the bottom of the logger and it will actually get the logger going. This is deemed the trigger event. So what we're going to do is use that, and it means that you can get a lot of loggers going roughly at the same time with a very simple little procedure. The next stage is we're going to measure temperature. This logger only measures temperature, it doesn't do humidity. And the options for measuring are you can measure the temperature at the end of each interval, you can measure the minimum temperature during the time interval it's been waiting before it takes a measurement, and a similar thing, but it would be the maximum temperature. So what we want is the temperature measured at the end of each interval. Now this logger's been set for every 5 seconds while it's been in our environmental cabinet, but from talking with Maeve, I believe that you'd like it taking a measurement every hour. So we'll change that to an hour. You can either use the up or down arrows, or you can type in your own required time. And next is, how would you like the logger to stop? Now you can either ask the logger to run indefinitely, overwriting the oldest values, which is a bit dangerous if you're wanting to log, say, fridges or freezers or ovens, because you can overwrite valuable data. If you know that you're only going to be using the logger for a certain number of readings or a certain number of hours, so we know we've set our logger for every hour take a measurement, so we could say we want you to stop after 100 hours. Or you can say stop when full, which is the standard one. So after 8,038 readings, this logger will stop, unless somebody tells it to stop before then. Now with these loggers, you can have 2 alarms set. You can either set one, or you can set both, or you can set none. So for example, if we wanted the first alarm to go when the temperature goes above, now the top option is 90, but say you had critical material that could only go to 76, and what would happen is, if this logger with the material went above 76, the little red LED inside would start to flash, and you'd know that this material that you were keeping an eye on had seen above 76 degrees. Now if the same thing occurs where you're using a fridge freezer and you have critical material that can only go down to say -20, you can say I want the alarms to go off if the logger sees any temperature below -25. So we'll launch our logger, and this is a useful little device. It's a timestamp validation summary of what you've just set up with your logger. We do take a lot of screen prints of evidence of what we've done and how we've set up equipment, and this is perfect for that. So what we've got is serial number 588488, the label is transit 2 test, it's waiting for a trigger event before it's starting, it's going to measure temperature, its capacity is 8,038 readings, it's going to take a measurement every hour, and it's going to stop when it's full, and the time taken will be 334 days 21 hours. None of the alarms are enabled, and the timestamp of the launch is the 19th of October at 10:10. Now this timestamp is dependent upon the time setting of your computer, so it's a good policy to make sure your computer is right before starting all your loggers setting up. So we'll OK that. And you'll see from the front of the logger that it started to flash a little green LED every 8 seconds. Now that doesn't mean that the logger is going, it means that the logger is waiting for the trigger event. So what we'll do is we'll trigger the logger, and I'll use my minor magnet here, and I'll slide it from top to bottom. And now the green flash should start flashing every 5 seconds, which means that the logger is logging. It's not logging every 5 seconds, it's logging every hour, but the LED flash means that it's logging, it's in logging mode. If it was doing anything else, say the green light was on permanently, it means it's on stop. If the red light is flashing, it means that there's a problem, or that one of the alarms has been triggered. So we'll leave that logging, and what I have here is one that's been logging every 5 seconds. So what we'll do is we'll put that on the pad, and we'll tell the logger to stop. Okay, so we've stopped the logger on COM7, and it's given a little summary saying that it's 588407, so that's its serial number. So we'll download the data. So this is what the logger has seen over the whole time it's been logging. And it comes up in this very useful little graph form, and you can zoom in on any relevant areas, or you can zoom out to see the whole period. Now that's quite useful, and you can save that data like that, and it will only save it in Tinytag Explorer mode, or you can convert it into a little table of values, and this is very useful. You can do anything you like with this table of values. So you can copy it as it is, and you can paste it into Excel, and then you can format it any way you like. So it's come in main formatting, which is date and timestamp, or you can format the cells and just have the time. And now with this, you can see that there is quite a large number of decimal places, but the actual resolution of these loggers is about 0.2, 0.3. The extra decimal places are just for your information. Each step from temperature to temperature goes up in steps of about 0.2, 0.3 because of the cost of these loggers. So you can copy and paste the data that way, or if you have a large amount of data, you can export the data using this little tab here. Export the data into a different file format, and there's a number of different options. You've got XLS, which is your standard Excel. XML, you can change it into a text, into a CSV, and then convert it how you want it, and you can save it wherever you like. So for example, I'd like to save it to calibration services, and I can put it on the desktop, or you can save it wherever you like. And those are the main ones. You can save, if you want to save all the data in its raw format, then the best option to save it as it is, and it will save the graphs and everything as a TTD data file, which is the Tinytag Explorer file itself, or as you've seen, you can convert it or copy it into Excel or any other appropriate program.